Describing motion. This is an example of the wind-up toy. Okay, ito yung halimbawa ng wind-up toy. Okay, in describing motion class, para malaman po natin kung paano sila i-describe, kailangan alam natin kung how far does it move yung wind-up toy, and then how fast does it move yung wind-up toy, and then dapat yung wind-up toy meron po siyang steady rate, speed up or slow down, and then meron din pong direction na kung saan mag-move yung object. So in that sense class, maaari po nating ma-describe ang motion ng isang bagay. Motion class is a change in position in a certain amount of time. When you say that something has moved, you are describing motion. So in describing motion class, you are comparing it with some frame of reference or reference point. When describing something that is moving, you are comparing it with something that is assumed to be stationary or not moving. And the frame of reference is the background or object that is used for comparison in determining the motion of an object. Example, you are on a train that just left the platform. The people standing on the platform see you moving away, so your reference point is the earth, and the person sitting next to you does not see you moving, and your frame of reference is the train. Frame of reference depends on the type of movement and position from which you are observing. An actor may be standing still and the background is moving, but to us, we think the actor is going somewhere. So, we assume that the background is the stationary. Take note, Earth is the most commonly used for frame of reference. A place or object used to describe the position or motion of another object. That is how the reference point being described kung ang object po ay nagbo-move from one place to another. For example, we have here, this one is our reference point. Itong floating boat, para malaman natin na nagmo-move yung isang object ay either lumayo or lumagpas dito sa tinatawag nating frame of reference. Try this. Is your desk in motion from the reference point of your seat? Yes or no? The answer is no. Another, is your desk in motion from the reference point of space? Yes or no? The answer is yes. In measuring the motion class, there are two things that you need to remember: the distance and the displacement. Distance class is a total change in position, and displacement a change in position in a straight line from point A to point B. For example, this is how it looks like, the distance from point A to point B, and this is how it looks like, the displacement. Okay? For example, another example is displacement in this area, and this one is the distance. What is the difference between the distance and displacement? Take note that the distance consider as the length of the path traveled, but displacement ito yung shortest distance. But in distance class, the body will moving from initial position to a final position, while in displacement, it is between the initial position and the final position of the body. Take note, distance is the scalar's quantity, and displacement is the vector quantity. Distance measure is always positive, and displacements can be measured as positive or negative depending on the reference point. For example, distance and displacement rather. Starting from the origin, O, a person walks 90 meters to the east, then turns around and walks 40 meters to the west. What is the total walk distance of a person? So he has or she has 140 130 meter. Okay, how do we get 130? We just add 90 meter to the east plus 40 meter to the west. And that's how we get the 130 meters. What is the displacement of a person? So what we need is to subtract the 90 minus 40. And yun pong sagot niya, 50 meter due to the west. Take note, pag displacement ang hinahanap, there should be a direction. Let's move now to the speed. The speed is, in a race, the runners have to move or change positions to get to the finish line in a certain amount of time. In order to describe the speed, we need to have the distance or the travel and how long it took to go to the distance or the time for us to describe the speed of an object. The speed is the rate at which an object moves. So the faster a runner's rate of motion, the faster the runner's speed. So take note, if the athletes run faster, so the time is mababa lang po. But if the athlete runs very slow, so the time would go faster. So in that case, malalaman po natin na ang speed ng isang tao o ng isang bagay. Okay, this is how we get the average speed of a certain object. So we have the average speed over a distance over time. When we say over, we need to divide the distance over time. Okay, take note the unit. It should be written at the meter per hour, kilometer per hour, or meter per second. Okay, ito po yung clues para malaman nyo po ang inyong sagot kung tama po ba ang units. If the word given is, or kung ang hanapin po natin ay times isang given, kailangan may seconds o minutes or hours ang nakalagay sa sagot. If distance man po ang hinahanap, it should be miles, feet, or the meters. Pag speed naman po, kailangan may miles per hour, feet per second, and meters per second. Lagi niyo pong tatandaan, pag speed, ganito po ang unit sign. Again, measuring the speed, meters and miles, kilometers, and measuring the time, the second, hours, or the minutes, and then measuring the speed, the ms, or meter per second, meter per hour, meter/hour, or kilometer per hour. Okay, let's try this one. What is your speed if you cover 240 miles in 4 hours? So we're going to use this formula. The speed is equal to distance over time. So, ang hahanapin po natin yung speed ng isang bagay. Okay? So, our speed is equal to 60 miles per hour because 240 is our distance and our time is 4. So, we need to divide 240 divided by 4 and you will have 60. Take note, pag speed ang hinahanap, kailangan mile per hour ang unit. Another, what is the speed of a car moving 124 miles in 2 hours? So our given is distance, we have 124, and our time, we have 2 hours. So para makuha po natin, class, ang average speed ng isang bagay, we need to use the formula of the speed. So we have the speed is equal to distance divided by time. So we have 124 ang distance, yung miles, at yung hours niya is 2 hours. So you will have 62 miles per hour. This is the answer of these questions. Now, constant speed, object in motion that their speed does not change is moving at a constant speed. So the total distance should be divided by the total time given speed at any point in time. So graph is a straight line for a constant speed. So take note this one, class. So from there, kung straight po yung line, ibig sabihin constant po yung speed or in a uniform velocity. Okay, next is the average speed. Not all objects move at constant speed. The average speed, also uses the formula speed is equal to total distance divided by total time, so represents the speed of the objects throughout its travel. And then the instantaneous speed may be equal or greater than or less than the average of speed. So speedometers is a device used to measure the instantaneous speed of a certain vehicle. Velocity is equal to speed with direction. Take note, if we get the velocity of a certain object, there should be a speed and a direction. Okay? In calculating the velocity class, you need to remember that the v is equal to the displacement and time. When we say triangle class means I changing of o pagbabago. So calculating the velocity is v is equal to the distance over time. In velocity, speed in a given direction, laging tatandaan may direction pagkukuha po tayo ng velocity. It also determined by using the distance from the starting position to the ending position rather than the distance of the path taken. A runner moves eastward at 10 meters per second. The speed of the runner is 10 meters per second, but when we get the velocity, there should be 10 meters per second to the east. Okay, ito yung palatandaan class pag velocity na po ang hanapin. Velocity is very important for an airplane pilot, weather forecaster, and anyone driving from one place to another. Vectors and scalars. A scalar quantity is one that can be described by a single number giving its size or magnitude. Example of this is the distance, the time, the volume, the mass, temperature, and the density. While the quantity that deals with both magnitude and direction is called vector quantity. Example of this is displacement, the force, the weight, and the velocity. In acceleration class, the rate of change in velocity is known as accelerations. So there are three things that you need to remember when an object accelerates from one place to another. So we have speeding up, we also have slowing down, and changing directions. So if we have this one, or if we have this, or if you experience this type of motion, it means to say you are in accelerating. Okay? Ito po yung ito po yung formula on how to get acceleration. So the A is equal to V, changing of V over time. Since the V is changing o nagbabago, so we need to A is equal to the final velocity minus 0 or initial velocity over time. Take note, in getting the acceleration unit, always remember that you need to write the squared or all the units written on the given problem. Acceleration is equal to the final velocity minus original velocity over time. So how do we know if an original velocity in accelerations, it is final kung ending velocity? If original, starting velocity. Okay? It tells how fast something is moving and gives directions. Used when there are changes in velocity. Okay, take note class, if we have 10 and 30, okay, for example, our car here starts to move and end up to 30. So, ibig sabihin, 10 is our original or initial velocity. And then 30 is our final velocity. So you need to minus the velocity of the final and the initial, and then divided by to the specific time, and that is your acceleration. Deceleration or a negative accelerations. An object speeds up with acceleration and velocity vectors point in the same direction. So whenever acceleration and velocity vectors have opposite directions, the object shows down and it's said to be decelerating. Okay, take note, when an object is decelerating, negative po siya. Okay, for example, we have velocity 1, we have 20 meter per second to the east, and we have velocity 2, 10 meter per second to the east. So our time is 2.0 seconds. Now my question is, what is the acceleration of this object? So we need to subtract 20 to 10. So 20 minus 10 is equal to 10, and then divided by 2.0. So the answer is you have 5 meter per second squared due to the s rather. In deceleration class, there is a decrease in velocity. The value of acceleration is negative, so the negative acceleration is equal to the deceleration. Take note that distance minus time graphs for acceleration is always a curve. So take note this graph in motion. So the distance from here, it always a curve when you accelerate an object. Okay, ito po yung formula para gamitin o para makuha natin ng distance, the time, and the speed, and the velocity, and the time of the velocity, and the distance of the velocity. Okay, can a car be accelerating when its speed is constant? Yes, even the car is constant, the car would accelerate. Thank you.